the whole point of Splice is that it's a royalty-free sample platform. And his advice was just chop the loops up or don't use the loops. I'm like, Splice is full of millions of loops. Why wouldn't I use the loops? What's going down? It's the At Odds podcast. We have no tagline yet. Matter of fact, you know what? Drop some comments with suggested taglines, because the last time we did that, we came up with the At Odds name. So I have more faith in the commenters than I do in my own ability to come up with a catchy tagline that really embodies the spirit of our podcast. The podcast is brought to you by Two Loss. So if you haven't signed up and you're still on the fence about getting your music out there, whether you're a producer and you just want to drop some instrumentals, or maybe you don't want to, and I'm the one who's telling you that, yes, you should try it out, or you're an artist who wants to try out, adding your catalog to the DSPs or maybe switching distributors to see how things go. 3 free months of unlimited music distribution, premium music distribution. TwoLoss.com. Use the code @odds, and it's free. There's no catch. I mean, if you don't want to pay for the membership after your 3 months are up, your music doesn't get deleted, which is great, because a lot of distributors will delete your music if you leave them. So that's something that I think they will, won't they? Don't a lot of distributors do that?
I think most will.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm not going to say all, because I can't say that for sure, but I think most.
No, I don't think all, but definitely a lot. And that's all is a fear. So TwoLoss.com, use the code @odds for 3 free months of premium music distribution.
So I'll just quick note about Two Loss has a lot of services and things on it, and a lot of them are very complementary. So there's a service or a tool on the Two Loss platform called Usage Discovery. And it basically scans the internet for people that are using your song. So if you opt your song into Usage Discovery, it scans the internet for people that are using their song. There was an artist that learned that a trainer from Peleton was a fan of their music. They had been using it just on their social media profile, but they hadn't been using it in the class. And Peleton is actually a store that we deliver to. So if a trainer wants to use your music, they can use it. They can get access to it through Two Loss, and you get paid a shitload more on Peleton than any other DSP. So because that user found that the Peleton instructor was a fan of the music, that person reached out to the Peleton instructor, and they actually used it legitly in the class via Two Loss. And I think it was something like, because obviously those classes on Peleton, like, a lot of people are listening. So it essentially amounted, don't quote me on this, but it essentially amounted to like $800 per usage of the song in the Peleton class. So that was just kind of a cool use case of like how some of the services can work together in having access to more stores and services. One of them being Peleton, because it was accessible when they found it on Usage Discovery. When they found that the Peleton instructor was a fan from Usage Discovery, they were able to connect the dots and ultimately get paid a lot more than they would have been. So that's just one of the many kind of case studies that I've seen on the Two Loss platform that was kind of cool. But I know a lot of stuff's going on in music, a lot of stuff that doesn't really matter to up and coming independent artists. We got Diddy's house being raided, Miami and LA. Yo, what's wild, and this is kind of a learning, like, what's wild is like some random cat, posted that Diddy's plane was headed to some territory that had a non-extradition policy, and like that just spread like wildfire. I still don't know if it was true, but it was like just some random cat said it, and then it just spread like wildfire. On the Breakfast Club this morning, they said it wasn't true. The message to independent artists being, especially if you have a little bit of a platform, like, be careful with the information that you share. Like, it's crucial, especially as you get bigger and bigger platforms. You have to be careful with the information you share. Double check, triple check. I don't know where Diddy's plane is. I have no idea, but it was just crazy to see just like one person say that and it just catch on like wildfires. Be careful with your platforms.
I mean, that's what my whole topic today is about, honestly.
Oh, then lead into it. We'll skip right over Lil Wayne using a teleprompter at the Drake concert.
Lil Wayne used the teleprompter?
It looked like it. That's what the video looks like on.
I feel like he has so many songs. I thought you were just talking about a regular person at first. Wayne has song on song on song, verse on verse. I could see him forgetting his lyrics.
But you're not performing them all. Like, you know which ones you're performing. I mean, Lil Wayne, I don't think it's that big of a deal at the end of the day, but like, he has a shitload of songs, but I'm only performing 5 tonight, 4 or 10 tonight or whatever, because it's not, I don't think he was doing a full set. Maybe he was, I don't know, but still surprising to me to see a legend using a teleprompter, because even though you have 1 million songs, you're not performing 1 million songs. You're performing 10.
Well, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, because it could just be the set list. It could just be other prompts, not lyrics. Because to me, you can't perform well and be focused on a teleprompter. There's no way. I don't know. I just don't think that could even be possible. And honestly, if he's using a teleprompter and performing at the level that he normally performs, that almost makes him a better performer. If that's in fact what he's doing. Because the people who use teleprompters are like this. They got to watch that thing at all times.
They call it, with like worship music or whatever, they call it a confidence screen, because sometimes you'll just like flowing and you may go through multiple different songs with similar chord progressions as the nature of the genre is. And you may just end up thinking that you're on, one song, or you get off. I'm not trying to make an excuse for Lil Wayne, but I saw him at the Superdome during Essence Fest, and he did I think 45 minutes, and he was a surprise guest, which was crazy. It was insane. And he performed, and he was doing verse, chorus. Some songs he did a full song. He did so many songs that I forgot he had, and I was singing along to him. And then there were songs that he didn't do that I wanted, but still he did 45 minutes. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's again, I'm not making an excuse, but I doubt, Payne saying that he was just reading directly off the screen. It could just be a confidence monitor to make sure that he doesn't have any pitfalls, or maybe he's I want to do some songs I haven't done in a long time. I don't know. I'm not making an excuse, but Lil Wayne to me is different than I don't want to name any of the new kids, because I don't want them to seem like I'm hating, but you know what I'm saying?
If anybody deserves a pass for anything, it's Wayne, given how many years he's been in the game, how, talented he's been, how many hits. I'll give him. It was surprising to me to see that, if that in fact was what it was. But
drugs don't help either.
Yeah. And Wayne, he's known for putting on great shows. So yeah. Anyway, Payne, we kind of
that's why it just doesn't seem. I don't know. I'm a DJ, and even if I'm looking at a teleprompter that's telling me to play this song next, that would be confusing to me and inhibit what I'm doing. But anyway, it's just on the topic of misinformation spreading. I just had a kind of disappointing experience with the music business education space last week. And I'll tell the story, but let me just play it's like a minute long. It's short. This is what I saw when I checked out a suggested video on YouTube that was titled "Help, YouTube is flagging my Splice samples," which is, an ongoing problem in the music producer community, and not just for producers, for artists too, who happen to use a beat that contains some kind of non-exclusive royalty-free sample in it, a lot of times Content ID will flag it. A lot of times Content ID will flag a recording of you clapping with your pit bull in the kitchen because they just are a horrible system. But this particular video was from an entertainment attorney's podcast. So I thought, great, this is going to be different insight than what I'm used to, because I'm constantly trying to get lawyers on this show and on whatever videos I'm trying to make, just because legal experts tend to have a lot better insight on legal aspects of what we're talking about. So this is the first time I ever watched, and this is the first minute that I watched.
Music producer, what am I doing wrong when I use Splice samples? YouTube won't allow me to upload my beats. You know, he's getting flagged, and I saw a couple other people in the chat that were kind of saying the same kind of thing. So,
you know, sometimes there are samples that are licensed from other producers who have that portion in their actual music that is in Content ID. That's the problem that happens, especially you producers who are making and selling beats. So if you sell it non-exclusively and a bunch of artists are using it and uploading it and being like, hey, it's my song, and they put it in Content ID, and now everyone else is getting flagged.
100%. I was going to actually say that producers need to chop up your samples, because a lot of people are just taking the straight up melody loops. And then so when another artist is registering music and they're not, you know, saying that they sampled some of this stuff or where this stuff came from, yeah, that's exactly right. Which is why I tell you guys every time on BeatStars, stop licensing beats. You need the exclusive beat where you can get the stems, where you can get, you know, all the parts of it. And that way you're not getting Shazammed or Content ID with YouTube. But if you're using little melody loops, you gotta chop them up more. I know I use Splice, but I use it for like drum hits and just maybe some like impacts and stuff. I don't ever use melodies for anything. And if you do, you want to use like melodies, you know, kind of like for your inspiration, use it for like an inspiration, and then maybe like redo it with another instrument and kind of, you know, whatever.
Initially, what shocked me about the video was that they made the statement that Splice prohibits commercial use. And then there was a whole conversation that, you know, they didn't delete the comments. So we were having an entirely different conversation. And she said that there were limitations on the commercial usage of Splice samples 5 years ago. I'll read her comment just because that was, I initially commented and said, absolutely, that's not true. You know, Splice it fully licensed you to use their samples commercially. She says, hey boss, appreciate your input on this. When I looked at it, it must have been 5+ years ago when I originally looked at the terms. It appeared that there was some limitation on commercial uses, and the term said additional licensing may be required from the sample creators themselves. I tend to err on the side of caution and interpreted that to mean there could be some issues and or potential liability for users in the commercial realm. For what I see, Splice has significantly updated its terms of use, which is great, et cetera. So this is a long ass comment. I don't know that to be true. We can't go back to Splice's old terms. The furthest back I could go is to 2018. See, I'm messing up too. But I was expecting a legal conversation. I mean, I guess the main takeaway I got from watching the video initially was just don't take information at face value. So is Diddy's jet flying to some country that the average American can't pronounce right now just because someone on Twitter said it? No. Is Splice prohibiting commercial use of their loops? No. And a lot of people watched the video initially where she made that statement and were like, yeah, see, that's why I don't use Splice. There were a ton of comments instantly, you know, with people saying, I'm never going to use Splice now. Thanks for telling me that. But there was one comment that said, this is why I don't use Splice or TrackLib, because it's not royalty free. I'm just like, she didn't even say that. She didn't even take it that far in the video. And I feel like that's even been the case with the content that I put out, where I'll say something that I think is clear and then someone will just completely misinterpret it and run with it. So nowadays and by nowadays, I mean this year, but I've been pledging to, during my videos where I talk about specifics, especially when it comes to any kind of terms or anything. Or cases, legal cases, because I'm not a lawyer. I'm referencing actual documents, actual sources, actual articles every single time, just so that I'm not making a mistake, which is still going to happen. Of course, I'm going to misinterpret stuff, and people are going to misreport, but I just want it there for peace of mind. So I'm doing a service to the people who are watching my content, because I don't want people going off and thinking something, and acting on it, even if it's not true. My other thing was like to speak on the Splice thing. The whole point of Splice is that it's a royalty-free sample platform. And his advice was just chop the loops up or don't use the loops. I'm like, Splice is full of millions of loops. Why wouldn't I use the loops? So I hear a lot of producers say that. Why are we having this conversation that isn't solution oriented, or that doesn't delve into the real weeds of the concerns with Content ID systems? Because this is not a problem with producers not chopping loops. I feel like both of them put the burden on producers to just use the loops differently and play this game where they're ducking and dodging Content ID. And it's like a game of cat and mouse. It's like, that's not what this platform was meant for. Splice was meant to distribute royalty-free loops to everybody. If you use them, you use them. You legally have a non-exclusive license to use them commercially or non-commercially in whatever productions, whatever compositions you create that embodies those loops and samples. The problem is the Content ID system doesn't take into account collaboration, multi-ownership, or non-exclusive licenses. And non-exclusivity has been around forever in the music business. Collaboration has been around forever. The Content ID systems are based on this antiquated notion that every song has to be owned by a single entity. And that's just not the case. That's a very label-centric idea. When I upload a song, the label owns it because I'm signed. But there's the majority of artists are not signed. So if you're an unsigned artist and you go and get a beat, and then he was also saying, don't lease beats. So I'm like, damn, bro, you're saying, number one, don't use Splice Loops, and two, don't lease beats. Everybody's already doing that. That doesn't make any sense. Why? That's not good advice. Help the people.
A lot of people have that opinion, though. I mean, I've come across.
They do. A lot of people have all kinds of opinions. I just expected people with a legal background who are, I look to other people, especially people with legal backgrounds, for information, because I'm not a lawyer. I've never even purchased a music textbook. I didn't even go to one of those little bullshit associate's degree programs. Sorry. There was one in my city. It was bullshit, where you get a degree, an associate's degree or some kind of degree that may or may not actually be accredited in music business. And I didn't even get one of those. So I'm learning on my feet. I'm learning from people, lawyers, other producers, that kind of thing, and then cross-referencing and checking, going to conferences. I learned all that stuff from there. So I'm looking towards others to educate me on this. And maybe I'm just frustrated and I'm taking it out on the podcasters, because for so long, Content ID is the worst thing to happen, in my opinion, to producers and recording artists during the streaming era, because it's completely upending our business models and undermining the way we make our music and run our careers.
So your solution would be to get rid of it? What's your solution?
Hell yeah.
To just get rid of it?
Yeah, because it's very clear to me that until Content ID, because they're generating billions of dollars, not millions, billions off of Content ID. Could they come up with a better system that's centralized, where there's some sort of whitelisting option or some sort of option for them to work with a platform like Splice? Absolutely, they could. This is billions of dollars. They could figure this out. Are they going to figure it out? No. Have they even tried to figure it out? No. Have there been lawsuits, class action lawsuits brought against them for this? Yes, because they are enabling copyright theft. If a rapper leases a beat and just two other rappers lease the same beat, all it's going to take is one rapper to violate the agreement that says do not run this through a content ID system. They do it. Next thing you know, those two rappers are getting their content flagged. Either they can't upload it to certain social media platforms, or their distributor is saying, oh, there must be a sample in here because we're detecting content from a pre-existing song. Then they go back to the producer of the track. They're mad at them. It's not the producer's fault. The producer could just put, this happens to me all the time. I put a beat with a splice sound on it, or even a sound that I made. If I sample my own packs and I put them online, if another person has run them, whether it's a rapper who used the beat by another producer that used my loop, or another producer used my loop and ran it through a content ID system, I'm getting my own content monetized on someone else's behalf, and I have to fight that claim. And it's happening at a regular cadence. If you're actually releasing music, you're fighting to assert your own copyright on content that, one, you have a license for, and two, you may have created yourself entirely. It's to the point where Splice even, and I don't know why they didn't bring this up, dude, Splice has started issuing licenses that you can print and save as a PDF and submit, because this is such a rampant problem. Now they've created a workaround for this. It's still something you have to fight, and an overzealous distributor could still deny your claim, and now you have to escalate that fight. But it puts us all at odds with each other, where eventually, if it gets to that point, I'm going to have to start issuing takedown notices because one of my customers leased a beat and they're upset about it because they got flagged by this rapper, and this rapper over here doesn't even understand what they did by running it through a content ID system, because the average person doesn't understand what content ID is even doing. And this person just snatched my rights as the creator of the beat and this other person's rights as a legal licensor of that beat. And it's all because the content ID system allows this and encourages this. There's no way around it other than fighting it. If there's a claim, it's this adversarial thing. And then to top it all off, I just don't like when people say, well, you should stop leasing beats and you should just buy them exclusively. This won't happen. Of course it'll still happen. If you have a loop in an exclusive beat, someone else has access to that loop. It has nothing to do with exclusive rights. It has to do with the content ID. It goes back to the problems being the content ID system, not the way you use a loop, not the way you chop or flip a loop. And then the other thing is, rappers on average aren't just going to buy exclusive beats all the time. They're expensive. It's a cost prohibitive thing. If all you want to do is you have a $200 budget for your album because you're a 19-year-old kid and just fresh out of high school working a job, and suddenly you want to drop an 8-song EP, you have $200 for it, you go the leasing route. That seems right, but then people are saying, oh, just go exclusive, this won't happen, which isn't even true. But if that were the case, suddenly they have to spend $1,600 because each lease might be around $200 each, maybe more. It depends on which producers they want to work with. It's just frustrating that this is the echo chamber that we've created for ourselves in the music business, when the problem is happening outside of us. Content ID is not the music community. Content ID is not producers. Content ID is not Splice. Content ID is not rappers. It was, they created a new problem for all of us. And that new problem, in my opinion, far outweighs whatever solution it may have found for a much smaller problem. And I just want people to talk about it.
So you're encountering some of these issues, but not having content ID opens up a lot more issues. Like, So I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if there's a system that you guys can put your beats and loops in, that then goes to Content ID that says, okay, you guys can't, anybody using these sounds or beats can't get uploaded into Content ID. I don't know what the solution is, but just
There's not, but if that's it, that's all we would need.
Yeah, but not having Content ID opens up a whole other, can of worms. So I mean,
I hate Content ID, but I think it protects, especially like I don't really function in this capacity often anymore, but like as an independent label owner, I would say a good portion of our distributor revenue comes from Content ID because they're identifying when creators are utilizing our music on YouTube, and they'll essentially demonetize, or like we get the revenue from that. You know what I'm saying? And even like we had a situation recently, which is super goofy. A guy like was just ripping all of Caleb's music and re-uploading it under like, he was spelling his name just slightly different. He had formed another TikTok account and was like trying to get features from people. He was uploading songs to YouTube, uploading songs, YouTube, SoundCloud, TikTok, and he had a whole nother Instagram account. And people were tagging Caleb in it, but like we didn't lose any money because our Content ID system flagged it on YouTube. And yeah, so I mean, Content ID, I still hate it because it's done us wrong before. Like we had producers that we paid for a beat flag our biggest song that was out today. It's still the biggest song that we have because they uploaded the original beat to YouTube like a year before, or maybe like 6 months before. But we had gotten, they basically played, we got an original beat from them, but they took like the guitar track, the guitar melody from that beat that they had uploaded and like a similar drum pattern, and then they made a whole nother song around it. So we got flagged, and then we were like, nah, here's the whatever. So we kept monetizing, and then they had their lawyers reach out. It was all this BS. I'm like, bro, like here's where we bought that track from, y'all. Can you go back and talk to your client? But I would say if that song had been taken down in the whole back and forth, I mean, and again, we had same exact song. We had one of the co-producers who never claimed his rights for the song, and his managers tried to get saucy and was like, y'all never paid us for this. Y'all owe us $15,000. It was all this BS. Yeah, it was wild. And you know the producer too. I got to tell you the story, Paige. But it was a wild situation. But again, it's like, because there was a paper trail, because of, I'm not saying Content ID fully saved us in that, but there was a record of all the splits and everything with our distributors. So I don't love Content ID. I think it needs to be better, way better. But saying like just delete Content ID puts a lot of artists, especially mid-level creators, like artists who were in the like $40,000 to $50,000 to $100,000 a year range, like making money, like that's a big thing that protects them, because a lot of times those artists don't have a big team that's like looking out for them and stuff like that. So I would say Content ID gotta change. There's gotta be a lot of changes, but deleting it, I think, is worse than not having it at all.
No, for sure.
Well, how do we change it other than talking about it? I just feel like we have to put pressure on it.
Our hands are tied. I feel like we would have to like get somebody to lobby on our behalf. I don't really know.
We don't. I feel like shit,
I'm always shrugging in the music industry because I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much we can do. It's the only thing that I feel like we can do is just continue to educate people on what, how to properly use the non-exclusive beats, the loops, the splice samples, whatever, but yeah, I don't see us having much influence on changing Content ID at this point.
I think you should turn up your mic though. It seems pretty low still.
Okay.
It's because Dame is leaning like a cholo back. That's some LA shit. Dame just leans during these podcasts all the time. No, I mean, to conclude, I think that's the problem with Content ID. We have no control over it. We have no input. It's a system that's there, that's rigid, that favors single owner exclusive content exclusively. And there's just no flexibility. We as the music creators that this system is supposed to help are the ones who have the least influence over the system and the way it works and affects our copyrights. And to me, that goes against the basis of copyright law. And this is the situation that we find ourselves in all the time. There's a multi-billion-dollar operation and we can't do shit about it because we don't have billions of dollars. It's just like every other big system in the music business. So I'm not going to sit here and pass the buck over to the musicians and say, well, here's how you navigate a system that's meant to help you. Like, no, you're not. If the system is meant to help us, the system is meant to help us. Let's call it what it is. It's a shitty system.
Well, just going back to the other reason that you brought this up, and just in terms of the misinformation that's happening, because there's a lot of misinformation especially from like music business gurus and things like that. I just think, over the years, attention has become the top priority as opposed to delivering, information that's correct. And I think that sucks. So, we always try, not to say that we've gotten everything 100% right, but our percentage is high. And I feel like if we do say something that may not be correct and we catch it, we'll correct ourselves. I just can't expect other people to have the same integrity because, the desire for views and clicks is so high that the integrity goes out the window. And I don't know this young lady that's a lawyer that you're saying, giving misinformation, but she's even a lawyer. Like, she's saying she's a lawyer. So you would hope that somebody with those credentials, that has gone to school, that maybe has a lot of experience, is not misleading artists. Because, I think that, one, just calling yourself a music business expert, like some people would just not check into it and just believe that, oh, you're an expert. But then calling yourself a lawyer, that's even more, reason for me to let my guard down a little bit, because it's like, oh, you're a lawyer, you know what you're talking about. But I guess there's good and bad of everything, right? Like, just because you're a manager doesn't mean you're a good manager. There's good and bad managers. There's good and bad lawyers. I mean, I guess you had to pass the bar if you really are a lawyer, so you know something. But there are definitely good and bad lawyers as well. So,
well, the music business is changing every day, damn near, and it feels like there's something new coming out. I think, with her, to her credit, she trimmed that part out of the video and she was responsive to the people who were sending her information. I just left a comment.
But to me, that's not enough. Like, taking stuff out, like, I feel like, and I don't know if this is what happened. I'm just saying in general, like, if you're wrong about something, taking stuff out and putting it back up, I guess that's fine. But I also think that you should acknowledge what you said was wrong and correct yourself. Don't just sneakily take it out. Have the conversation and be like, this is what I said. I was misinformed. This is what it should be. And that's the conversation that you should have to make it all the way right. I'm not expecting people to be 100% right all the time, because I can't guarantee that that's going to be me. But if I say something that's wrong, we can definitely have the conversation on the same platform that you gave the wrong information. So,
well, that's why I like being on here with the two of you, because you won't let me slide with shit.
I mean, we got if I say something wrong,
it's true though.
If I say something wrong, catch me. Like, I want to be corrected. I don't want to be given, wrong information. For the stuff that's opinion based, we can go back and forth all day. Like, but stuff that's factually true, then, we gotta, for the facts, we can't have a disagreement.
Well, and that's the problem in the comment section, apparently, or especially because, like, it's just kind of the lay of the land now, where I'm trying to police and moderate my comments because all of my not all of my videos, but the majority of my videos are about the music business. And because the audience is watching them, they're likely not experts, but just with the nature of the internet being what it is, everybody has an opinion. You know, and I'm not even talking about lawyers or music business educators. I'm not going to call myself a music business expert. I think educators and experts are two different things in the sense that an educator is constantly learning and acknowledging what they lack in terms of information, and an expert just kind of maybe feels like they have reached a certain level where they don't need to go. That maybe I'm wrong on that. But yeah, the comment section is wild. Everyone just has this impulse to weigh in on something, and then they can take it a step further and start creating content because you can monetize those moments. Doesn't matter what, like we covered that futuristic video where he said something wild about mechanical royalties and it was completely false. And instead of saying, yeah, you know what, I got that wrong, it was like he doubled down because he felt like it was an affront to his status as an expert in the music business. And then there's the Diddy article. There was another article too about Bruno Mars owing millions of dollars to MGM Grand. And they had, a week later, comes out MGM Grand is dispelling that as a lie. And up to that point, because the internet is what it is, you have to monetize every moment, every hot take, every bit of information. Doesn't matter what the source is. I heard it from this person. I'm a media outlet. I got this from another media outlet. I heard this from a tweet. We're printing it. We're running with it. Once this news cycle is done, which is a much shorter news cycle because we're talking about the internet and social media, then we just say, oh, that's not true. And then we monetize the retraction. It's such a sick, toxic cycle, and it's
don't
keeping
get
us
invested
dumb.
in shit that don't have anything to do.
There are just so many, ironically, because of the internet, there are so many ways. Yeah, no, you're back. There are so many ways where we can stay educated and learn anything we want with the internet, but also there's this opposite force of stupidity just pushing back on all of that. And the internet is such an amazing source of bad information.
I would just encourage people to not get invested in shit that don't got nothing to do with you. Like, I mean, anything can be manipulated. Like with the Bruno Mars situation, who knows if he has debt, or even if MGM said it, or he said, like, who cares? Like, focus on the shit that you got going on. Like, that has nothing to do with you, but just know that what does have to do with you is the stuff that you share online and the stuff that you retweet, get emotionally invested in, the stuff that, that's taking time away from what you have going on. Z from Audio Mac had a tweet. He says, morale across the record industry is very low right now. The widespread layoffs not only displace hundreds of passionate, hardworking employees, but also burden those who remain to the point that many are just going through the motions. It's a bad situation. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I always worried about my people who work for these labels because I feel like this has been happening a long